Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's FileMaker webinar. My name's Mike Crook. I'm the marketing manager here for FileMaker in the UK. I have with me Kieran Saunders, our FileMaker product specialist.
Good afternoon.
So today's webinar is all about scripting and calculations, and Kieran will be getting going with that very shortly. Before he does so, I'd just like to say if you have any questions during the course of the session, feel free to ask them using the questions panel that you will find on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll do our best to address as many of those as we can towards the end. The other thing we'll be doing during this session is running a few polls. Please do interact with those. They give us great feedback and help us to improve future sessions. So yeah, do give those a go. So that's all you'll hear from me until that question section at the end. So without any further ado, I shall hand over to Kieran to get started.
Thanks, Mike. So the agenda for today, we're going to be looking at FileMaker's solution logic. So that includes the calculation engine, scripting, and then we'll be looking at just sort of look at what you would then do with that, add it into reports and to look at security and deployment. So what do we mean by solutions logic? Well, the whole idea of adding some scripting, some solution logic into your custom app is to add automation to make your users more productive and not get them to do really complex tasks, to get them to get to the end task as quickly as possible. To do that, we need to usually add some kind of calculations in there so they don't have to sort of go to a calculator and start calculating things up. And it also, of course, is once you've added this all together, it's really to get to some decent business intelligence, find out how your company is going. So scripts allow users to get the task done quickly and efficiently, as I've just said. Usually you're sort of automating a business process or you're guiding a user through some kind of process. And of course, using some kind of business system, the obvious bonuses for that is that everyone's doing the job in the same way. So both scripts and calculations just really increase that data integrity. If you've ever seen people adding data into spreadsheets and so on, everyone might have a different way of doing it. So by just really tightly controlling how people are not just going through the process, but how they're entering the data, will just really increase that the business intelligence at the end of the day. So let's look at calculations in a bit more depth. So calculations are obviously very, very important. You can calculate upon not just text, but you can also calculate on, not just numbers, you can also calculate on text and lots of other different types. So they're really used within sort of reports. You can have auto entry, so as you start typing, FileMaker can auto complete an entry. Validations, of course, so you want to make sure that what's going in is good data. We can use them within displaying tooltip. So a tooltip is a bit of text as you hover over a button or a field. You get a little display help called a tooltip, but you could also put calculations in there so that I've seen it, for instance, in the line items, and hovering over a tooltip comes up that shows a lot more details of that particular line item of an invoice, let's say. You can filter portals, so portals are a way of looking at related data. We can filter them based on some kind of intelligence, say this quarter's sales. We can calculate and format a field. So for instance, a low stock item, you could make it go red depending on calculation of what level you set it to, and various other scripting operations. So they can be obviously very simple or extremely complex. You could just be adding two bits of numbers together, or you could be doing a great big calculation to work out an end result. So they obviously can be very different. And like I said, they could include not just, don't just think of them as adding up numbers, but you could be joining text together, looking at date, calculating out dates and times, and also that container data, so videos and audio and pictures. You could be doing some kind of calculation on what's contained within those fields. So on the left is our the calculation dialog box. This is the calculation engine. This is where you go in and calculate everything. So I'll just try and take you through it a little bit, and we'll go into the product, into FileMaker Pro actually, and use it as well. You can see sort of left to right. On the left, we've got the fields. So for instance, I can see product name there, product notes. So you'd be using them. The middle sort of white space is where you're writing your calculations. Sort of middle to right is the operation, so adding, joining, greater than, less than, the logicals, operations, and nots, and so on. And on the right is the function list, so to help you out of, today we'll be using one very popular one called get current date as an example. You know, it's a dynamic calculation to get whatever the day date is today. Okay, so let's move on. So let's have a look into calculations, and let's start building some things up. Okay, so I'm going to open up FileMaker Pro, and I'm going to, for this example, I'm going to be using some of our new starter solutions. So I'm going to go up to File, New Solution. Oops, sorry, I apologize. I'm going to go to File, Get Started, and then I'm going to choose from a starter solution, and we've got a couple of new ones with FileMaker 15, but for this example I'm going to be using the tasks one. Great. Let's close that window down. So I'm just going to be, I'll just make my screen a little bit bigger, so I can see it's a little bit small, so I'm just going to make that slightly bigger. That's better, and hopefully that's refreshed on GoToMeeting, and you can see that a lot better. That's better. Okay, so this is the task starter solution. So I'm just going to put a bit of data in there so that we can then use it. So let's say one of the tasks is to build the website. I'm going to add a few people in there. Bob and Mike and Javier. Okay, so add some people to do this task, give some status, a category, let's say. We could write a description. But let's look at one of the of how to improve this task solution. So maybe one of the things I'd like to see is a sort of how many days I've got before the due date, sort of to calculate it so I can see that number. So let's go and see how we get that done. So I'm going to go into Edit Layout Mode. And I'm just going to give myself some room and just shrink these fields a little bit. And then I'm going to go to the Field Picker tool and go and create a new field. So maybe days left would be a good description. And for that, I'm going to go and have a look at create it as a calculation. So this is the calculation window that we looked at in the keynote. So here you can see I've got my fields that within the table. There's actually 3 tables in this starter solution. There's the task themselves, there's people that are assigned to that task, and attachments, files that are attached to it. So we're looking in the current table and tasks, and we've got several fields in here. Now, what would be good then is obviously, if we can see here, the due date that we put in, minus this dynamic calculation that I was talking about, which is get current date. You can see as I type, FileMaker is sort of filtering out through all of the different functions here, and I can double click on the one I want and it'll put it in. Or I can go over here and again see if I can find that get current date, or actually just let's put date in there, see if it comes up. There you go. So we could just choose it from this list here, double click and bring it in. So either way you want to do it. There's always some help up here if you do want to use the help. It is a very good, it's now online, but it's a very good help. It's a good place to at least start to help you out with those things. So let's see, what else have we got here? So we've got our calculation. I think that's correct. So the due date that the user has set minus the current date should be how many days we've got left. Let's see if that works. The other thing to point out with calculations is the result is very important. So maybe you want it to come back as a textual or date or something, but in this case we want a number, right? We want a number of days. So let's see if this works. So great, I've created my calculation. Of course, I need to then put it onto the form, and you can see the formatting slightly different to the other fields. So let's go and have a look at those. Let's bring that over. So the inspector has slightly changed in 15. We've got less of the textual tabs up here, and they're more icons. So let's have a look at copying this formatting. So if I click on a label here, I can actually copy the formatting, go to the label, and use the other button here if I hover over, and then paste that on. That's much better. And I'll do the same with the drop down. Great. Okay, let's see how that looks. Let's go into the future a bit. And there you can see how many days we've got to go. So great, that seems to be working. If I obviously change it, FileMaker is recalculating as we go. Okay, fantastic. So that seems to work really well. And it's improved us a little bit. What we could have is maybe we want some visual indicators on here. I know that this one actually does. If we go back in time, oh no, it's not actually. I thought that was, it was going red. Well, let's make that happen. So let's say if it's under 5 days to go, let's do a bit of visual, sort of make it orange or red to have that little visual indicator. So for that, we need to, again, go into edit layout mode. I'm just going to right click on my object. And the one we want is conditional formatting. So selecting that, I want to add a condition. And it's very easy in this one. You can go off to a formula, so you could write quite a long formula in here, but value is quite easy. So it's where it's, what do we want? Less than, let's say 10 days. Change the text to a sort of amber color to give us a warning. So let's see how that looks. So I'll save that. Let's reduce the days. And there you go. You can see as we get closer to the due date, we'll have a little warning, visual warning here, and you can do this in a lot of different places. It can even be done on itself. It doesn't have to be on another field. We're also referencing another field for its intelligence. Okay, so let's do another little calculation then, and using a slightly different, instead of a calculation, let's use a summary. So we've got all these assignees here. And let's have a little count of how many there are. Maybe, it's just a quick reference to maybe every team has to be 3 or some business process that has to be followed. But we'd like to just calculate that, especially if there was a lot of assignees, it would be handy to have a little count at the bottom. So let's look at how we would do that. First, I'll just show you let me just show you in File Manage Database, the sort of the back end of all this. So this is the tables I was talking about. There's 3 tables. The fields that go into them, and these are the relationships between them. So we've got the tasks, has many assignees and many attachments. But what we need to do is to go actually into the assignees table and add a summary within here. And by putting a summary in here, every time you look through that relationship, it will be the right number. So if task A has 5 team members, it will show 5. If task B has 20, it will show 20, and so on. So let's call this size of team. And again, this time, creating a summary. So this are the 2 places you can create fields within FileMaker. One is in the File Manage Database, and the other is the Field Picker little tool that I use to start off with. So that's the 2 places you can do this. So I'm just going to hit that create button, and up comes the options and what do I want to do. So in this case, I want to count. If I used a total, it would actually total them up. If it was, especially if it was a number, you'd get a strange result. Especially if it was an ID, you get a total actually adding all those IDs up to make maybe 100. Well, we just want a count of one of these. It doesn't really matter. I'll use name, but it doesn't matter the count of just every record in there. In this case, every person. Okay. So I've created the summary field. Now let's see how it looks and bring it onto the field here. So I'm going to go into Edit Layout mode, into the field Picker tool again, and you have to drop down from the current table, so the task, to the one where you want to grab it, which is the size of team. Let's bring that over, and let's see how that looks. Okay, so let's add a team member, and when we click out, we can see that one is increasing. So I just thought I'd point out a little bit of formatting. Maybe you can see that there. It's not responding very well. So let's go and fix that. I'm going to select both the field and the label. Go into the inspector, and what we want is it's in this positioning side. So let's see what some of these other objects. So this object here is anchored, is the way of thinking about, to the left and to the bottom, and therefore it's moving correctly with the other objects. So in this case, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to go anchor to the bottom and to the right. Let's see how that looks. And before I go, I think what I might do is just change the feel of this. Just to make it look more consistent. Okay, great. And as you can see here, you can see that it's moving with me and moving with the rest of the objects. Great. Okay, so that was a couple of calculations. Yeah, let's pause there then and reflect on what we just did. So I think we're going to, if we could just go to a few polls now, and if you don't mind, I'll just launch that poll. So what are the 3 types of objects you can add to a calculation? Okay, thank you for doing that. I'll just close that poll there and share it with everyone. Okay, so yeah, absolutely. We've got we can add the fields, so where the data is, the operators, the what you want to do with those fields, and the functions help us out with doing some more complex calculations for us. So yeah, absolutely. The only one you can't add is an actual table. So a table is just a collection of fields. So you couldn't or wouldn't add a table in. Great, thank you for that. So let's have a look at. I haven't really gone into much detail. And this is a good place to talk about it. What are the different types of operators? And there's one that isn't. Okay, thank you for that. Just close that poll and share the results. Yeah, fantastic. So, of course, you've got the mathematical operators, you've got textual operators to add text together, and we'll be doing that in a minute, and the logical, the ands and the ors. Java functions aren't natively part of the FileMaker operators, but you can, with a plugin, if any of you people actually do a bit of Java programming, you can actually, through a plugin, like I say, make use of that. Okay, well, thank you for that. Let's have a look at Let's have a look at scripting in a bit more depth then. So scripting is a sequence of events. So you could actually go into the product and do an awful lot of the scripting steps manually, as this sort of the screenshot is showing. You can do new record as a script, refresh the window, go to a record, and so on, sort the records. But of course, the purpose of the script is to automate all this together using the calculations that you've just built to do something such as printing a report or going to a layout, doing a find, getting the right records, populating those into a report, possibly PDFing it, emailing it to somebody, all on a click of a button rather than having to do that manually every day. So a script step, when we talk about a script step, is an individual command. So we've been talking about new record, enter find mode, go to layout, and so on. There's more than 130 script steps, but they're all in a, I want to say English language, but of course we may have people from across Europe. So it's in basic language rather than a technical word. It's go to record, it's new record. They're all very easy to understand. So despite a wide use of sort of purposes, there are certain sort of, we call them design patterns, but sort of ways in which people are using scripts, and they kind of really can be broken down into interacting with the user in some way. Sort of popping up a dialog box to prompt them to do something or to warn them about something they're doing. Finding data, so doing a common find to help the work process, so jobs for today, for instance. Error trapping, of course, so we want to find any errors before it hits the users and deal with them, or at least report it in a better way. And obviously navigation and looping through records is a common case. So here is the script workspace, and we'll be going into it again in a minute. So on the left is a series of the scripts, the individual scripts containing lots of script steps. You can edit and obviously manage them using this dialog. In a new file, if it was completely empty, there would be no scripts in there. We've started with a starter solution. There's, I think, a good sort of 7 or 8 scripts in there already. But it's your job, obviously, to customize your own solution, your custom app, and to add those scripts in. So we can organize them and search through them, as it sort of says there. You can see right down the bottom in that screen grab that we've got filter, script triggers, and subscripts, and so on. So we can organize them into some logical fashion. So what do we mean by triggering scripts? Well, a script is, once you've written a script, you need to trigger it in some way. So that could be through a button, and that could be asking the user to click on a button to do something. Scripts can call other scripts, so you can have subscripts and passing information between those scripts as you go. You can also have something called script triggers. So these are defined either on your layout or on an object. So, for example, they could be on the layout on the form. As you go to the form, there's a script trigger on record load. Let's check out, make sure that certain parameters, certain operations are done at that point, just as the form is loading. Or you could want, when a user, for instance, exits a field, do something with that, and we'll be doing that one in a minute. So let's have a look at scripting and adding some in. Okay, so let's look at this, some other functionality we've got in this little solution. We've got the ability to add attachments. I've saved some up here, so maybe these are some of the sort of objects that we want in this website. So, please add to homepage, maybe. Which is great. So I can add some attachments in, or multiple attachments in, and I can add a comment onto them as well, which is great. But what would be quite nice is to actually have who did it and when. When was the comment? So we've got a bit of history going on. So let's look at how we do that. So it's going to be in a couple of stages. So first off, we want to actually trigger that script where we exit the field. And then we want to obviously grab the information that they've got in already and append a date and a username. So let's go ahead and see how we would do this. So let's go up first to the script workspace. and let's talk our way through here. So of course you can search on these scripts, so you can find them via their the text of their name. You've got the script workspace on in the middle, this white space. So if I just create a new one, so add data comments, let's say. So we'll give it a name. And then as we type into here, we start building up our scripts, the numbers appear and so on. A space bar will bring up your comments, so you can, write some comments on what the script does. Like so, and maybe you want to put the date that you did it and who did the script. And then we can go down. So we can add scripts very similar to the calculation engine. We can add scripts from the right-hand side here and just double-click them in. So performing a find maybe is something you want to do. You can put that in by double-clicking in it, delete it by pressing return, or you can just start typing into here, same as the calculation engine, and you could bring in some script steps like that. So let's have a look at a few of them. You've got a favorites up here. So as you go through, you can add them to favorites as you go through. So they're on the top menu there. So it's sort of my favorites are the comments and the ifs, so setting a field with a bit of data, going to a layout and looping through records, going to an object by its name, setting a field by its name, setting variables. Those are my particular favorites. But as you go through, you can see that they're built into a series of different families, if you like. So you've got some miscellaneous ones, and of course my favorite when I first started developing FileMaker was the speak one. I was building a little spelling application for my nephew, and I got it to speak the word. So that was very very cool when I first started. But lots of other ones. So it's within sort of navigating and records and fields you'll be going into a lot, of course, and obviously the controls as well. So I recommend you go through these. I mean, if you just go through them, there's a little bit of help down the bottom here, but also a further help that will go up into the help up there. So if we go into the if statement, maybe we go into the help. That should open up a browser and go to the online help, and then bring up that script step. So lots of help in there, and of course the examples, which are really useful because then you get to know, how would you use them in an example, if something, and if, and I think we got some and ifs and else ifs and else and so on. So you can go through a sort of logical steps. Okay, so let's look at what we want to do today. Well, we want to grab what's in that field, and then textually appends a current date and the username. So let's see how we do that. So first off, we need the variables. They're very, very useful. Bit of text up here which just tells you that you need to put a dollar sign before it, prefix for a local variable, which is for the life of the script, which is milliseconds, or a dollar to make it global across the whole file for that user. So maybe you want to set something in there to reference again and again and again throughout that user's session being opening up the file and closing the file, or you just want it local. And for me, local is absolutely fine in this case. So we'll give it a name. So it's just a sort of, a variable is very much like x equals in mathematics. You're just putting data within a container, if you like. So what value do you want to go in there? Well, I'd quite like the comments, obviously, right? And again, they're not on the current table, they're on the related table attachments, and there it is, comments. So I just want that comments to go in there, but I then want to do attach something. So append. And to append, you use the ampersand symbol here. That's textually append something to a bit of data. So the other thing that you need to learn is that within variables is sort of a literal text, so something you type. In this case, I just want to add in a carriage return, and there's the carriage return there. So I want to put that in there, so that we have the comment that was in there, carriage return, And if I just character return that so you can see it, and then add the one that we were using before, get current date. Fantastic. And then I want to do the same again. So I want to append ampersand, character return, and then I want to get the username. Brilliant. So let's see what this looks like. There you go, made a mistake. Of course, I needed another ampersand on the other side of the character return. Okay, so I forgot to append. So append the character return and then append, undo, and then append the get current date. And it's worth pointing out, actually, new in 15, we've got undo and redo within the script, which, as I've just shown, is incredibly useful. Okay, so let's OK that. That's great. That went through. And OK that. What else do I want to do? Well, the next step is, after I've got this variable, is I want to set the field. And I want to set the field, and I'm just going to go in here to make sure I'm going to copy that text so I get it completely right. I want to set the attachments, comments, so I want to attach the same, I want to put the thing straight back in and put it back in. So I've grabbed that data, I've added current date and the user, and then I want to put it back into that field. And then the last one I want to do is just to commit those records with no dialog. Okay, let's see what this looks like. And I may be going into the script debugger early to show you how it works. Okay, so test, and no, nothing works. So what was going on? What's not happening? Well, I've created the script. The script is up there, but I've not attached it to anything. So let's go into layout mode, and on that field, a right click, and I'm going to set script trigger. And there's lots of different ways I could trigger it, but the one I want to do is on exit. So after I've written it, it's saved it, and everything else, I want to then go in, launch the script, and go and grab it. So they go add date of comments. And then OK that. And you can see we've got a little trigger icon here that shows us visually that we have the trigger on there. Let's try that again. Great. So now we've got test, the date it was done, and the username, and we can go off and possibly do that again. Yep, and it will go on and so on. So as people start adding comments into this, we record the date and who said it. So a nice little addition, I think, to the system. Right, let's go off and do another script. I'll show you how it works, and then we'll come back and do it. So a bit of a navigational script, which is quite a nice one. So we've got up here, we've got tasks, which will go, if I actually put in a few new ones, you can see them. Just put some categories in there because we'll be using that in a minute. So this is a list of all the tasks we can see, and I think it's formatting them by type, or no, by date. And you can see on the right hand side here we've got an arrow to then go to that detail. So it's just going to tasks, the list, and task details. But it's using these nice little navigational buttons. So let's go and actually delete them, and then I can show you how to recreate them. So in this case, I think we'll use a button. You can use anything and right click it to make it a button, but we'll actually just use a button. It was called task, wasn't it? And we just want a single script in this point, which is go to layout. There you go. And also another little hint is that once you start using FileMaker a bit more, there's some shortcuts here. So go to layout, GTL will also bring up go to layout because you may be using it a lot. Okay, so where do we want to go to? In this case, we're on the details one. We want to go back to the main list. So back to task. Let's see how that behaves. So we've got tasks. Maybe I'll just to make it obvious, I'll I could just put that in like that, or I could use, if you see the options here, we can actually put an icon in here. So I've got an arrow already built in, so that looks quite nice. Make that a bit larger, something like that. And if we go up into the inspector window, let's look at the theme that's on it, see if we can match. There you go, yeah, accent button. You can create your own styles here, but luckily there's one in there that's ideally suited for us. Looks the same as all the others. Great. So tasks and going back to the main screen. So very quick, a one-line script, but still very powerful. And let's just do it again on these buttons here so that you can see the same thing happening. So that's that button there. Let's grab a button again, put it into the side. In this case, it was just a icon. Fantastic. And something like that. Let's see how that looks. Not very well. I need to anchor that to the right-hand side. That's better. And let's just do a bit of formatting. That blanks out that the end. Great. So there you go. Let's just make that to the front. I didn't actually put a script on there. Okay, so we've done the formatting. Let's actually make it do something. So again, a single step, go to layout. And in this case, we're going to go to task details. That's better. I wonder why it wasn't highlighting. See, I don't know if you can see that, but it's a very subtle highlighting as you hover. Obviously, when it's not activated, there's no script on it. It wasn't working. Okay, so great. A little bit of scripting there. Okay, so last one in scripting for you is to look at how we flip between when you load up a FileMaker file, a custom app, how you load up depending on what the user is using, what client they're using. So are they on a desktop, are they on some kind of tablet, or are they on their phone? So let's have a look at how we're doing that here. So there's a couple of steps on there. First is up into File and File Options. We can actually go into the script trigger here on the right-hand side, and this script trigger is based on Windows. So we can see here that it's on first window open. So that's when anybody basically opens up the app. So it's the very first thing that happens. A window opens. What do you want to do? Well, I want to trigger it. We've got a script here called trigger on first window open. Let's go and have a look at that. There it is. So it's quite a long one, but let's just work through it, and then I'll show you how to use a few tools to look at it. So it's nicely documented at least. So script is performed on first window open. Go to File Options, Script Trigger, which I've just shown you. Choose which is the current platform or the client, and go to the appropriate layout. Go to the right form. So 1 is equal to Mac, and so on. And this is in the help. So if get device is equal to 1, or get device is equal to 2, go to layouts, task details, which is the one we've been on. So let's look at how that works by going up into the data viewer. So this is a FileMaker Advanced only tool, the script debugger and the data viewer, but this is why it's so useful. So you can look at the current things going on, the current variables and so on, or you can set a watch and add a watched one, which is very useful. So if we type in get device, and then you can evaluate these things, you can see that the result is 1, which in this case 1 is equal to Mac. So it's very useful, the data viewer. Of course, it's not going to work. It only works on the desktop, so you're never going to evaluate 4 or 5 for the phones and the tablets. But at least you can test it out that it's working for, obviously in this case, for my Mac. So very useful. So that's the data viewer, very useful, and you can obviously use the script debugger when you run scripts. The script debugger is extremely useful, and we'll go through. If we actually go through this one here, let's see if we can run this one. There you go. So this is simulating running the script, going through it. And what we can do here is to step into the script and to go step by step through it. You can see it's moving. In a minute, we're possibly going to stay on the same one because we're not going to go to another layout, which is unfortunate. But we're stayed where we are. And then it's bombed out of the whole script because the first if statement is correct. We got number 1, which is a Mac, and then it went to layout, task details, which would have changed if we were on another one, and then go through. So you can look at this. You can pause on error if you want. You can see the last errors that come up. It's very useful. And also on the right hand side here, you can disable script triggers if you're testing. Sometimes you can get in a pickle if you've got lots of triggers going on elsewhere, and you can open the data viewer from this window as well. Okay, so that was a quick tour of the script debugger. Okay. So let's just go through that in a bit more detail in the keynote. So, like I was saying, it's very useful for troubleshooting. It allows you to walk through the script. The data viewer allows you to monitor what's going on inside those variables and the fields that you're using within your script. So that's usually where you see the error. You were expecting to see X in this field or variable in it, and that's why the script was not behaving in the way you thought. That's usually one of the reasons. Yeah, and we've already just looked at them at the two. Okay, well, let's have a look at quickly doing a report, making it as secure as we can, and then deployment. Okay, well, I think what would make sense is to do a quick report on the task that we've got. I think that makes sense. There's not one built in already, so that would be quite nice. So let's go and do that. So we edit the layout. We click on New Report Layout, either in the menu or down on the button there. We're going to give it a name, so it's on tasks and report on tasks, let's say. And we're going to select for the computer a report. We're going to include a summary, totals and grand summaries. You can see it sort of builds the picture for you, so you can expect something. So maybe the task, the description, and the status, let's say, and definitely the categories. Yeah, why not all of them? Let's see. So the next one is, after you've selected the ones that you want to report upon, the next is to organize them by a particular category, and weirdly the name of the field is category, so that's the one we want to order on. Sorting by category is fine. You could do it by dates, I suppose, but you can add those in. The next is which summary you're going to put in there. Maybe we'll do the size of the teams, as that's the only one we've got in there. So you can add a summary in there to add things up as you go through your report. So next one is just what you want at the top. I'm going to put page number in and maybe the current date down the bottom right, but you can add logos in and of course once you get through to it you can customize it of course further. I recommend you create the script and get it to run automatically to start off with at least, because that deals with the sorting which is all important in sub-summary reports. So let's see how it looks. It always looks usually terrible the first time, so that's let's go through and run that script. It's not run yet, so that dealt with the sorting, so we're now sorted on category and we weren't before, and that will help us bring up the sub-summary parts. These parts here are the sub-summaries, and they don't display unless you're sorting on the right field, in this case category. Okay, so it's not the most beautiful report in the world, but at least we can see, maybe if I get rid of the, I really need the category and the size of teams, let's get rid of that one there. like I say, it's not the most beautiful report in the world, but at least we can see we're starting to build up a report that's summarized by the category of the task. We've got the dates, the days left, and so on. We could even have a grand total of all them maybe coming up. We've got a today's date automatically generated. Of course, this is just a normal FileMaker file form, so we could go in and create a label or whatever we want to give it a name, let's say. And that page number, I brought it up. I knew it would have a question mark, but until you actually start to print it, it won't have the page numbers in because it doesn't know how many there will be. So if I just go into preview mode, you can see that's turned to 1. So that would calculate if you had multiple pages, that would then give you page numbers there. Okay, so it's pretty simple, a brief overview of creating a little sub-summary report, but you can see how you can start adding some nice little reports into your system to help with the business intelligence. So the other thing that's quite nice is, of course, a chart. So let's have a look at charts in here. I want to go into the details, and I'm going to go into the table view here, just because you can create them from anywhere, but I'll create them from table view because you can see what's going on. So let's say that we want, again, a report on by category. We can choose the little drop down there, chart by category, and then we get that category is loaded up for us, so we can see how many. Let's just make sure in the X we've got category. There you go. And we can save that as a chart. And then that goes into our system and it creates a little folder in the layouts and creates a little folder for us, which is great. So we've got how many business tasks and home tasks. We're obviously focusing on our home life at the moment. But we could go into the tasks here and add a few more and make them business. And you can see, hopefully, when we go back into the chart, you can see that those, no, it didn't refresh. Oops. Those business ones should have gone up. Of course, you always need one error when you're doing a live presentation. I'm not sure why that's not working. Let's go into. I'll have to look at that later, but the chart should dynamically change as you add those tasks in. Okay, well, let's look at how we can get this up on and deploy to other users. Let me just close a few windows down here. Okay, so one way to do it is to go up to File and Sharing and upload to FileMaker Server. So we've got a nice security alert now saying that this particular file doesn't yet have a password. So let's set that password straight away and give it a password, as strong one as you can. Set that password. It's going to close the file, and then I'm going to choose a local host here. You could have a favorite host of where your FileMaker Server software is sitting, whether it's out in a data center or within your organization. I'm going to upload it using the username and password for the FileMaker Server. That's going to then upload, and then we're going to open up in FileMaker Pro. You see, I'm being challenged for username and password now, and that's great. So that's up now on my server. You can see in brackets I've got Nessie 15. That's the server name, and you can see that's now being hosted, and it's very easy to now go up and send a link to the database. That'll open up your mail client, and you can send a link to your colleagues to start using this. So let's, if I could just bring up my iPad. I've got my iPad here next to me. And let's go and just refresh that a little bit. Okay, so this is FileMaker Go on. It's free on the App Store to download. Go and have a look. It's FileMaker 15 was just launched very recently, so you can go and download that from the App Store. So we can go to either files that are on the device, sort of local and offline, or we can go to the hosts file and have a look at a server that you may have and go in live into a database that you've just done. So that task one there is the one that we've just built. So again, I'm being challenged for a username and password. And I can go straight in there. So it's obviously that script that runs when we first open. It's detecting that I am an iPad, and it's sending me off to a relevant form that's a layout that's right for me. So we can see here that there's several different ones on there, and it's obviously taken me off to the tablet one as applicable, which is great. So I can go in here and use this now, and of course I could then obviously go off and add that to through a browser as well. So let me show you how to do that side if you've not seen it before. So within FileMaker Pro again, I'm just going to open, it's already on the server, so all I have to do is go to sharing, configure for WebDirect, and I'm going to go, in this case, all users. You would normally, as this is web access, you would really lock this down and go into the privilege sets, and I'll talk about that in a second. But let's just go ahead and do that, just to open it up. And here's Chrome. So if I just refresh, which is my the IP address or the name of the server, fmi/webd, and there you go. There's the file that we've just put up. Challenging me again. I'll just go into that file. Absolutely brilliant. So now I can go into that system that we've been building with all the custom bits that we've put in, but I can see it through a browser as well as the iPad or iPhone and the desktop, which is fantastic. So let's just finish off with a bit of security. I'll just get all these things out of the way. So file manage security is where you want to go. You'll be challenged, of course, with the admin password to get in. So there's you may see this basic setup to start off with, and you could just add users into that basic setup, or you can go to the more detailed one and have a look at that. So it always comes with two, a guest and an admin. You can add new accounts, so you could add maybe Bob with his password. There you go. You can require him to change the password on the next login so you don't know what it is. Active and give him a privilege set. So let's go on to privilege sets and show you what they mean. So privilege sets is like permissions for adding users into a permission set, gives them rights on the custom app. So full access, of course, shouldn't only one or two people should have access to that. That means they can go in and do absolutely everything. Data entry, you can go in, but you can't do any design. You can't go into layout mode. You can't go into the relationships chart. And read only. You can just read the records. You can't add or delete or anything else. So you could duplicate one of these, edit it, rename it, maybe the sales privileges, and then you could go in and give them different privileges on the different sets. So maybe they can edit tasks, but they can't create or delete maybe, and you can go through and give them a lot of different options on records, layouts, the drop-down lists, scripts, whether they can print or not, how often they have to change passwords and so on, lots of different other things in there. The other to point out is these extended privileges. So this is like technology that can happen with file. So in this case, this privilege set can use WebDirect, and it can, if I tick that, can use FileMaker and Go and FileMaker Pro. Lots of different technologies like ODBC, which is talking to other databases, XML publishing, PHP, and so on. So that's a security, a very brief overview. And I hope that was useful. So, if you're finding that you want to find out a lot more than we've been going on this webinar, I really do recommend you have a look at the FileMaker Training Series Advanced. It comes with lots of different exercises, actual demo files, and sort of exercises to go through using those actual physical files, FileMaker files, as well as, of course, a PDF and lots of hints of what's new in 15 and so on. But if you want to go through scripting and some more examples, there's loads of nice examples in there that you can go through, change those files, and add some scripting and calculations into those example files, and then therefore obviously use them in your own. So, talking about training, if you want some sort of physical sit-down training, and I think they also do mental training, Transmedia. Transmedia is one of our oldest training partners. They're a great bunch of people, several locations. They're either in Bristol or a couple in London, but they're very happy wherever you are to meet you. So have a look at their website, transmedia.co.uk, and book up for a call.